remember when we first started putting the kicks in, they were really light in the background. It's almost like dipping your toe in the water going, oh, is this going to work?
Well, welcome to the first of the Forever podcasts. More than 3 decades on from the advent of the rave scene, we're delighted to take a deep dive into the past, present and future of hardcore with some of its biggest champions and originators. A warm welcome to Slipmatt, Vibes, Dougal, Force and Magika. And get things rolling, guys. Could you each give us a quick insight into how you first got involved in the rave scene and perhaps what's kept you personally connected ever since? Slipmatt, can we start with you?
Yeah, so I was playing records from a very early age as a kid, always fascinated with tunes and stuff. So I sort of, my teenage years, I sort of got started on a bit of DJing, playing at school parties and all sorts of stuff. And then my older brother, being a bit of an entrepreneur, around that sort of 88, 89 time, he was like, oh, right, he could see pound notes and stuff. He thought, right, okay. Sort of me running around playing house music from sort of 86, 87, sort of in the house, and that must have influenced him. And he started off rain dance in 1989. So I was obviously going to be the resident DJ, whether he liked it or not. So what a good start, really, for me, I suppose. And then they went on, that started off illegal, totally. The second party was illegal and it got shut down while I was playing. Actually, me and Lime were on the decks, got shut down, which was a bummer. And then their third party, they went on to do the first actual legal outdoor, like proper rave in the country as rain dance, yeah. So that was my start. And then from doing the rain dances, they blew up. They went really, really quite big, sort of over 1990, 91. And then I started, off the back of that, I started getting books like all around the country. I mean, people used to come from all over the place to rain dance, promoters as well. I just got noticed and and that was it. I was like springboarded into the brand new scene, sort of DJ circuit.
What would you say has kept you then kind of connected ever since? And I know your production career as well. Perhaps you might tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I started, my whole reason for getting involved was my love of music and DJing and mixing. I used to, before the rave scene, I was going to nightclubs and I'd stand there, bit of a geek really, stand there and watch the DJ. People like Simon Harris springs to mind, watching him mix like acapellas over tracks and all that. So pure love of, it's just what I always wanted to do from a very early age. So I just, I love it. I stuck with it. Some people can't stand the driving and the traveling. It doesn't bother me because I'm doing what I love. Totally. And it's gone all right for me as well. So there's a lot of people that have done the DJing. Yeah, a lot of people that have done the DJing and then they get a bit older and can't be arsed. I'm totally not like that at all. I'll go till I drop. Yeah,
exactly. Still got the strings to your bow with different genres.
Yeah, I mean, because it was so big when it started. Things like my track on the Ragga Tip in '92, that was so huge, and still is. Things like that sort of keep my name sort of there. I don't think I'm going to get forgotten because of stuff like that, and obviously the whole Happy Hardcore thing and that as well. With yourselves sort of kicked off in '93.
Yeah.
Things like that don't get forgotten.
And coming to you, Dougal, tell us a little bit about what kind of first enticed you into away from the dance floors and behind the decks.
So my dad was a DJ, but he was like a wedding DJ. So he wasn't sort of doing what sort of style I do now, obviously. But yeah, he had sort of some decks and stuff. And I apparently, when I was like 5, 6 years old, when he was doing a gig, I'd sleep underneath the decks while he was playing. So I'm just literally underneath. I'm like, what? Dad, I'm really not sure you should have been doing that with me. So sort of music was always sort of bred into me from my mum and dad. And when I was 15 years old, it got to the point where I had to do a work experience at school. And I was useless at absolutely everything. I couldn't spell, reading terrible, writing terrible, classic ADHD, dyslexia. Didn't really know what it was then, but looking back now, it all makes sense. So what am I going to do for work experience? I was like, oh God, I can't see myself going into accountants or anything like this. Dad said to me, what is a disco shop where I buy all my equipment from? Maybe we can get you in there. So they had a word, got me in there. I'm skinny as anything. I remember forgetting my first day. This big guy unit is like, right, grab that speaker. We're putting this over here. And I'm like, oh my God. And then he had me doing press ups in the shop, right? We've got to build you up. He goes, look, we're putting this sound system in this party. It's called ESP, and it's in a place called Castaways. And that's between Northampton and Bedford. And this place is like in the middle of nowhere. It's like right out in the sticks. And they said, right, ask your mum and dad if you can come along and set the speakers up at this party. It's like acid house, rave. And I was like, oh, God, this is amazing. So get back, mum, dad.
Is that the old Milwaukee's?
Yeah. So this was before Milwaukee's.
I didn't know it was called Castaways.
Castaways.
Before, yeah.
So I go back and I'm like, mum, dad, please let me. And they're like, yeah, no problem. I'm like, what? They're like, mum and dad are like a bit hippie vibe. So get back to the work experience place, and they said, right, Friday night, make sure you're here for like 8:30. We're going to set all the speakers. We'll get all the speakers, set them up. So put them in the van, drive to the place. Then we're going to get the speakers up, and you're going to help set it all up. So turn up in the middle of nowhere. These bloody speakers, they're absolutely huge, and I'm trying to carry them with this guy, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, I was just so small then. Anyway, getting the speakers up, put them up. It's a fog machine, huge rig, and a strobe, and that was it. And I'll never forget when they started testing the sound system. First of all, they put the subs on, you can hear, you know, the bass, and you're like, oh my God, this is exciting. They go for the mids and the tops. And there was a DJ called Neil Parnell, and I'll never forget the first record he put on. It was Kirk's Nightmare, I think it was, Your Son Is Dead. And when I heard that track, and with this weird talking and everything, I was like, my God, this is incredible. And then I think 10 o'clock come, they opened the doors, all of these incredible, unusual, I suppose like teenagers, maybe a bit older, they all start coming in, big floppy hats, huge baggy clothes, strobe machine, fog machine, doing all this crazy dancing like that I've never seen before. Everything about it was different. And I knew at that moment my life had changed. So that was the actual starting point for me, knowing that this is where I wanted to be.
So after that epiphany then, and you're obviously getting into DJing yourself, what's kept you going all these years, do you think?
Oh God, so I mean, from that moment onwards, I then started throwing parties myself. Yeah. So I got into that. Then my DJ career just slowly but surely grew. Murray, who was throwing the parties at Castaways, then became Milwaukee's, then put me on at the Dreamscape gigs. Started to meet people. I mean, Matt Slippers, he really helped me on my journey. I'll never forget, he got me my first booking with at Skedness with Bogey.
I always forget that.
Yeah, so that was taking me out of just being an ESP DJ. And what it was is because I was a raver, I knew that, and I didn't take drugs. So as a raver, I wanted the music to touch me, to feel me, to like, the whole point when I was going to raves then was to put my hands up and cut your hands through the lasers. And it was such a feeling. Everyone used to put their hands up in the air when the pianos hit. So that's where all the pianos come for me. And the music went really dark at one point. And then as a raver, I was like, this is so miserable. This is depressing. So I just got onto the sort of the piano tip, stuck with it. And that journey it's never left me. I love performing in front of people. I love giving people a good time, and that is always something that I'm so proud of when I do a good job, and that feeling's never left me. And it's still, if I do you dirty man. It's just still to this day, any gig I do, it's so important to me that the people in front of me are having a good time, and I work as hard as I can trying to work out what sort of style of this record, or what it is that's going to connect with them, and so that's never left me, and never will.
Thanks for that. And Force, tell us about your journey and where it began.
Well, strangely enough, mine's going to be a bit of a combination of these two. So I've always been into music like Matt from early years, but mine was slightly different because I was always in sort of guitar-based music, Motown, all that kind of stuff. Got into heavy metal at one point, which probably kind of drew me towards the kind of harder sounds, possibly. But I then started to DJ, doing weddings and birthday parties and that kind of stuff, and had a sound system like Dougs. And so one of my mates asked me at the time, could I come along and put my sound system into a pub in Clacton, which I did. And that was my kind of first real introduction into the underground scene as it was at the time, because it was just pubs and bars and people setting up and playing some tunes. So then I started DJing at a local club in Clacton, which was Oscars on Clacton Pier.
Legendary.
Yeah, everyone's been there, haven't they? So, and we got picked up for Night Force Records. And I was working with Stolzy and two of his friends, Paul and James, and we became Force and Evolution at the time. Got signed up to Night Force. Had a few releases there, but was still very much working part-time at that point. Then got picked up by Mr. Slipmatt at the end for his Universal label. We did a few tunes on there. And then me and Stolzy kind of got more into the sort of four to the floor sound. And where this is going to get really funny is the man on the left that started to get us work. He got us our first Dreamscape booking. And it's going to work along the line like this, isn't it? And so, basically that's how it started. And because of we were lucky enough to make some really big tunes at the time, and that kind of elevated us to where we were by the mid-90s, really.
And how have you kept that going, and what's been your journey since
With
then?
a struggle. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because everyone has their own reasons for kind of staying in it. Now, I'm sure some people would stay in it because they don't know other things. You know, I was quite lucky because prior to that, I was a computer technician in an insurance company. So I was doing that full time. So I kind of had a job where other people have just kind of, that's all they've done. So I've done a lot of different things. There's lots of things within the industry as well, isn't there? That, you know, whether it's agency, management, record label, all those kind of things that you can do that aren't necessarily on the road. Yeah. Still do that, but unlike Matt, I can't stand the driving. So I find that a struggle. Anything past 8 p.m, I need a hotel.
So thanks for that. And coming to you, Magika, tell us a little bit about what first got you into the scene and your journey as a performer and a promoter.
I think musically it was my older brother. So he introduced me. He went to New York and he came back with Public Enemy and Rob Bass, Easy Rock and Johnny Kemp and all these sort of electronic acts and hip hop acts. And that was my first sort of introduction into sort of like specialist kind of cool music that you didn't really hear on the radio at that time. So that was my first love for that type of stuff and music in general. And I think then later on, I had a group of friends that I referred to as the County Close crew. And it was a road next to where I lived. And they introduced me into the rave scene. So they just kept going on about the rave scene and they were going to illegal parties. And they said there was a party taking place in a place called Hall Green. It was at the Dog Stadium. And they said, I said, how does this work? And they went, well, we're going to phone this number. And then they're going to tell us where to meet. And we're going to go to meet. And then one of the funny one, one of the guys in the crew, he went, do you want any gear? And I was thinking, I thought he was on about clothes. Right? I was like, because he was like dressed in all this gear. I was like, gear, yeah, where'd you get that from? And he was like, no, mate, I'm talking about like, and I was like, no. So we went to this rave, and when we got there was a blockade, police. The police had already got there, but they allowed everybody in. And it was the whole euphoria of everyone going and getting past and screaming because the police were in this residential area in this huge warehouse. And I remember the laser coming on it, and I looked at it, and I've never seen anything like that in real life. And it was like something out of Star Wars. It just went, whoa. And then on stage was Man Paris, and it was like, and he had the long dreads, and he looked like the Predator. Do you know what I mean? I'm looking at this guy, and he's like,
oh, amazing.
So that was my first encounter with the rave scene, and then I went along to an event, and it was run by members of the UB40 group. They had a label at the time called Rough Tone, and you probably remember the tune Crackman on the Line. And
LSD's tune as well.
Yeah. Roy worked with them a lot. Yeah, and Swanee, who still does. They do a lot of the dubstep stuff together. Yeah. And I went along there and then just ended up on the stage. And then that was it. And then
pushed your way onto the mic.
Yeah, just pushed my way on the mic, and then the rest was kind of history, and then just always hustled ever since. And then the first, I think, my claim to fame was Mr. Cox. You know, and when Matt says, you know, there's things that you do, certain things that you do that sort of lead you to not being forgotten. I think that's one of mine.
The Carl Cox concept.
The Carl Cox concept, yeah. And I literally went literally all over the world, and you know, and I was around him for 7 years, and it was a great experience, and it's something that I treasure and I get, you know, asked about a lot. And then, like Force said, we're handing it down the line. Paul, you know, when we started playing at Dreamscape, and you know, and that was just, it naturally happened. And the next minute we were known for that, and we still get talked about and known for that now. So that was my introduction into the whole rave thing in the early years.
Great. And the vibes would come to you
Oh, here we go.
at the end of the line. But
Yes.
last but not least.
Well, I was always a music man from sort of 12, 13. I was always buying records from Our Price and the local Crazy Beat records, and just always soul though, and street sounds and Roy Ayers and funk, but just playing them in my house, in my bedroom and that. And I got to 16, 17, left school. We used to go to a club, me and my mate called Big Baz, Barry J, you all know him. We used to go to a club
Big
called
Baz.
Raquel's in Basildon. And on just out of the blue one night, we're coming home in a taxi. We were 17, and fella in the taxi, I don't know how we got talking about it, because it's like 40 plus years, like 35 years ago. And we asked the fella, we were just talking about radio, wanting to do pirate radio. And he said, I can sort you out a transmitter. This is very sketchy, but very quick. This is just, and he said, I can sort you out a transmitter. And by the next week, we bought a transmitter off a fella called Jim Mahoney from Pitsea. And we bought a £500 transmitter, which I know now is a con.
So we used to get for about
100
£1.5, I think.
Yeah, I know. Either way, we started a pirate radio station called Elite when I was 17/18 from my mum's garage, and it just took off. We were going from a place called Tilbury Grays, when it was getting all the way to Barking, East London, all the way out to Southend, up to Chelmsford, and down to Kent, Gravesend. And I'd never been to hardly any of these places before, never gone further than Basildon or, you know, Barking. I couldn't believe we were hitting all these places. And we had 2 pages, and they were going crazy, crazy. So we got 2 phones, 2 techno phones, crazy, crazy. And bookings from little bookings started coming in, tiny bookings, small. Then we started getting adverts. Even Jay out there, he advertised on our station, went to his house in Hornchurch, he gave us a bundle of money, and we started doing flyers for him, So it was a little start of doing small things. Then I started getting booked. And he said, I went to his house one day when he was doing Beyond Therapy. He said, I can't book you for this. He said, but one day I'll book you. And then a couple of 3 or 4 years later, he booked me for World Dance. So it just moved on, and then from little acorns, like sort of the radio stations doing youth clubs. Then we went into Basildon, Mr. B's. Then me and Barry started doing our own club, our own night at Mr. B's, and it was rammed. It was 1,000 people. Started about 300-400, and it built up. We've done it for a year. We're getting 1,000 people every week, and I was booking DJs: Mickey Finn, Moose, Kenny Ken, and then obviously it goes both ways, you know. So people got noticed. That was how it was from doing the pirate radio station. We was playing soul on there at first. That was the thing. I was playing the soul and funk. But as time's moved on, we thought, oh, this is getting a bit sort of, people wanted the rave stuff. So we used to go to a place called Brickhouse Records in Grays and buy records. And you could buy 4 records for a tenner in a bargain box. It was wrapped in paper. You wouldn't know what they were. I remember getting Man Machine in there, LFO.
I remember Big House.
So that's how we started moving on. And then obviously the domino effect, bang, bang. And then I made a record. I was lucky enough, I was in an event called Roast. And I played a jungle record from a fella called Remoden called Wonderful. He came up to me afterwards and he said, wicked set, thank you for playing my track. And I said, oh, wow. I said, really? He said, that's my track. He said, have you ever made music? And I said, no. He said, would you like to? I said, simple question, crazy question, deserves no answer, of course. That was a Sunday night. Tuesday, I was at his studio with Grant Nelson, Wish Doctor, a fella called Andy, who'd done a lot of the Star Wars scores, on this a desk as big as this.
Wow.
And Remo, and we made Sing It Loud that Tuesday night. The following week, Grant said, do you want to do a B-side? Went to his house in Rains Park in Wimbledon, done the B-side, Music So Wonderful. And that was where it all took off. Yeah. What an A-side and what a B-side to come out. Music So Wonderful one side, Sing It Loud. And that was my flyer. That was a flyer with my name on it that went everywhere. It sold many, many copies. And that was just, that was it then. Once people, that was me. Once you've made a good record like that's, you have to do that in them days. You had to stand out. And the radio, I was advertising people. I was on the radio. My name was out there. I used to go on in the mornings. And when I'd wake up, my mum's garage, it was great. I could go on when I liked, just walk down the steps and go on. And it was brilliant promotion for myself, self-promotion. And when you've got your name on a record that's selling thousands, then it's great.
Did you ever get radioed at your mum's?
Yes.
No!
How long you got? I said this last week, because we'd done a party. We'd done not a party, we'd done a gathering because it was so big, so busy. We said one Sunday afternoon, all meet up at this one tree hill, and we called it Teddy Bear's Picnic, right? And it blocked off the whole A13, or 5 bells, blocked it all off. That next Saturday, our doors went in because of that, because we got too big for ourselves, and that was it. So yeah, it was just, and from there on, I was up there. Once you get in there, and started making more records with Grant, with Wish Doctor. And, you know, just kept flying and hasn't stopped since.
Basically, that transmitter was worth 500 quid, wasn't it?
Good investment.
They wouldn't even let my mum.
When
my mum was coming back from the Irish club that night, about 11 o'clock, and they wouldn't even let her in the house because they locked all the house off where they raided us. We couldn't even get into her own house with my Uncle
What a story,
Uncle
man.
John and Auntie Sheila. So, yeah, that was that. So, just never, I haven't stopped. I've done DJing since 1989, since to now. That's all I've done. So, as we've said, probably all I know. I'm sure I could wangle myself into somewhere, but I'll stick with this for now.
Comedy shame.
I was going to retire.
Yeah.
I was going to
You're
retire
Bob.
at 40,
You're
and
Mickey
it kept
Flanagan.
going. I thought, that's it, 50, and then it kept going. So I'm going to keep rolling now. Go with it all. Fingernails, hang on in now.
So back to you, Slipmatt, and we mentioned that phrase earlier, and Dougal mentioned 1993, the rise of happy hardcore. Why do you think it had such an impact, resonated so strongly, particularly among younger ravers who perhaps might not have been around in 1989?
Yeah, it was so over from sort of 91, music changed loads. Although it was all rave from like 88 or even 86, which was sort of when house started. But from 88, we had sort of acid house and stuff. And then into 89, we had a lot more melodic sort of music as well as the acid house. And then 1990, it was bass and bleeps. And then into 91, come hardcore. And you think it's not a big amount of time, but the changes, you know, it was gradual into each sort of thing. But so then into 92, as 92 went on, by the end of 92, we had all this dark stuff coming in, and the beats were changing as well. There was a lot of jungle sort of starting second half of 92. So that's when it all sort of started to split. Then when we got into the beginning of 93, the scene, the music, people's preference to music had split most definitely. Not every, you know, a lot of people liked it all, but there was definitely a divide coming, and so a lot of the parties were playing very, very dark, just sort of breakbeat. The kick had gone from a lot of the tracks. It was very dark and gloomy, and which was fine. I used to love it. I used to play it as well. Nothing wrong with it, but I think as we moved into 93, that 4 to the floor started to get missed. It was missing a bit, you know, and all those big uplifting tunes were turning into dark, gloomy tunes, which had their place and it was good. Yeah. But I noticed it, and personally, I wanted to make. I was like, oh, what happened to tunes like Edge One?
You want to get the hands back in there.
Pounded and stuff. So when I made SMD One, that was what was in my head. I was like, right, I need another fucking Edge One to play out because, you know, I can't keep playing all these tunes from 92. So I did SMD One as a bootleg, which was just bang, bang, bang. Still had loads of break beats in it, still break beaty, but then it just into this huge piano sample for people to, like you say, stick your hands
in the air,
touch the lasers. So yeah.
And how about you, Dougal? What was your? And obviously, you were starting to get into production and things like that at that time as well.
Yes, I suppose I was at that crossroads where I was a raver and I was a DJ, and we'd go out and it was just so moody all of a sudden. There was just no fun. All the fun had just almost been stripped out of it.
Someone said to me that it was the drugs that had changed. There's something called snowballs.
That was it, wasn't it?
Something like snowballs or something like that had come in.
Nothing to do with the really, really dark music at all, was it?
No, but it made
the scene more splitting, as you said. Yeah,
people like that dark,
Yeah.
that dark thing. There were, I don't know, I didn't do that sort of thing back in them days. I don't know. So
it was, wasn't it? Just all of a sudden, we'd all noticed it'd gone so moody. It was,
as well as the music did go a bit commercial. So even like with my SL2 stuff and that. So I we was in the charts and stuff, and we noticed it was.
It was a matter
it'd gone
of
cheesy,
back
a bit
underground
like
again,
trance did in the end of the 90s. It all went cheesy, didn't it? It's a natural progression.
So I expect it most probably needed to go moody for there to get to where we got to. If it had just carried on sort of where it was, then it'd have just sort of sold out. So it was a nice touch actually, because what happened was say we lost the kick drum for a while, which just went back to breaks, and it was just breaks and bass line. Then what we did is get the breaks, put a kick drum with the breaks, but then add the piano back in. And it was just a perfect formula. All of a sudden, you can just see everyone back up. And as Matt said with like Edge 1, what he was looking at, I was looking at tracks. It was like Awesome 3, Please Don't Go. So I was looking at stuff like that. And then as Matt was doing SMD 1, I did a tune called like Life's Like a Dance, and again, it was just putting the pianos in, putting the vocals in. And then me and Shane got together. Met at Milwaukee's, didn't we?
Oh, yes.
And Shane
the
goes,
dream team.
we just like, we had the same hair, we had this long
Dream
blonde
team.
hair, and we looked like brothers almost. And,
Ross.
yeah.
Long hair
Dross.
Long haired Ross. And we sort of like hit it off straight away. And then Shane did to me, he goes, do you want to go to the studio? And I was like, where's the studio? He goes, it's in a roller skating ring. I'm like, studio in a roller skating ring? He's like, yeah. He goes, we're not doing no daytime session. We're going to do an all-nighter. He goes, that's how proper hardcore ravers doing it. And I'm like,
Roller
what?
Express.
Yeah. So Roller Express, he gets me there at like 9 o'clock at night, turn up, everyone's left, and we go to this tiny like room in the corner. Shane introduces me to Grant Nelson, who was a witch doctor.
And Highlander.
And then we started mucking around, didn't we? And then all of a sudden, Can You Feel Real Free just happened. And then we had a little
Mega
break.
tune. Yeah.
And then we went for roller skate, didn't we? At 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Blast,
We did, yeah.
blast around the track.
Roller
like
Express
that.
empty, yeah.
And he goes, right, Paul, it's not time to go home yet. We're going to do the B-side. So we
Yeah.
went in, and then we actually sort of used a bit of Shades of Rhythm, didn't we? Here's another chat.
All in one evening, one in through the night.
Yeah, so we did
Daylight was coming up and 2 tracks done and
Two
a roller
tracks
skate
done.
session in the middle.
That's it. And yeah,
what-
so that was where we really started bringing that kick drum in with the breaks. And so Matt did it perfectly with SMD, and Wish Doctor was such a great engineer. He just absolutely nailed it for us with Can You Feel Real Free? And that was it. That was my stall then. I was like, this is my music. There's a kick drum and the pianos, and do you know what? It hasn't really changed since. So
No, definitely.
Well, I'm going to go back to that breakbeat time, just coming out of the dark, when we were signed to Night Force. Was pretty much always making happy music anyway, but it's breakbeats with piano. But saying about the kick coming in, do you remember when we first started putting the kicks in? They were really light in the background. It's almost like dipping your toe in the water, going, "Oh, is this going to work?" 'Cause it had been breakbeat for so long. And then gradually, with every release, that kick got a bit louder,
Bit more distorted.
a bit more distorted,
Yes.
over a period of maybe a year or even a year and a half, and then suddenly it's just bang, bang, bang. But look, we was always in, when me and Darren used to play down at Oscars, depending on who the top name was, guest, that's the word, we'd play the opposite music. So if Matt or Paul or Shane was down, we'd play drum and bass, and vice versa. So we was on that line of not knowing which direction we was going to take at that point, but we just loved happy music in the end, and that's the route we went down, and that's
You found your sound though, didn't you?
yeah,
You really found your sound.
yeah, we found the sound,
Yeah.
and it was really when the kick drum come in and the breakbeats disappeared,
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah.
And then we lost the bass lines, and then we put an off bass.
No
a
bass
stab.
line.
It was a
What
kick
was
drum
that
and
about?
stab. Well, the kick drums were so big and long.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
take up so much room. You wouldn't need a bass line, so we'd have a huge kick and then just a little an off stab, and that
I
was
often
it.
say that to Darren actually when we speak about it, and we'll be chatting for hours about stuff. Do you remember we didn't have bass lines in our tracks? And we always say it's when we started putting bass lines back in that we got lost with the mix, because we didn't know how to mix a bass line at that point.
Yeah.
It's like,
With a big kick drum.
With a big kick
Didn't
drum.
realise you need to make them the kick smaller.
Exactly. So yeah, lack of education, that is.
And Magika, for you as a master of ceremonies up there, Pied Piper leading the dance, what was that happy hardcore moment like as it emerged? Why do you think it had such an impact on young ravers?
I think for ravers and for myself, it was just what we're hearing. I remember going to like Quest, sort of 1990, 91, and other raves alike where the sound was, pretty much one under one roof. And it was all that breakbeat and, really good energy, people raving, that whole unity thing. And then I remember going to like raves like Amazon, which was like the sister brand to Quest, and it was dark. The attitude was dark. The persona was dark. The behaviour was dark. I remember going in there and I just knocked into a guy. He dropped his drink and went, "Yo, you got to go toilet, and you got to go and get some toilet paper and clean it." And it, just the aggression and everything. And it was just like, that's how I found it. And then it was like the hardcore music, just, it had a spirit to it, the energy. And just like the word, it was happy. It made people smile. It was fluffy. Do you know what I mean? You didn't get any kind of animosity there or any negativity or any aggression. And that's why I think a lot of people felt safe and they enjoyed the sound, and it was a good environment.
Absolutely. The safe was so important to me that when I could turn up, I never worried about someone's going to bottle me. In my hometown, if I went out as an 18-year-old in my hometown, it was like war. I never forget, I saw someone smash a bottle and shove it in someone's neck, and I'm like, I'm never going into that town centre again. So the rave scene was like, all right, mate, where you come from, what you had, you know, this is you know, hardcore, you know.
And it went back to that. It went back to that in the hardcore. That's what it was all about. But if you went to like the jungle events, the deep dark ones, it wasn't like that. They had their own way to communicate. But it was like foreign to what I wanted to see.
A lot of it was what they were taking. But
the funny thing was,
listen, that's the truth. There was
when what they were taking changed.
There was some funky substances being passed around.
There were strange situations though, like probably Roller Express being one of them. When I used to play at Roller Express, I would play drum and bass because I'd bottle it, basically. But you didn't give a damn. I just going in there with a bit of happy hardcore, and he's literally got drum and bass jungle ravers in there just staring at him. What is this?
And then all of a sudden you get one or two, and then all of a sudden what you have to do is you have to do something that sort of crosses over, that gives them a bit of what they want, and all of a sudden you get them on side a little. But it was hard work.
Do you remember the times of when Dave Skelter used to put the sets on and like just fuse the rooms, and then we'd come on after like Randall, and then they'd all be like looking at us thinking shit, and then they'd all run, and you're like, come back, and they're all going, and all of a sudden, boof, they're coming in, and it was like,
the other side, it was like a crossover. It was
nice, like Pakistan and India, like when they just swapped over. Do you know what I mean?
United Dance was a bit like that after a while as well. Like in their sort of later years, United Dance was like that. They just fucking whole room would just go vroom when a different type of music come on.
And vibes.
It's actually got back together again a bit, I think now. That was
they're more universal, aren't they? They're up for stuff.
Like Night Forces nightclub and things like that. And obviously what we saw at the Sanctuary last year, being able to play all the styles.
Yes.
Good old days. Milton Keynes again. What about you, Vibes? After you mentioned that calling card of your track in '93, what was that happy hardcore moment like for you? What was it? What did it mean to you?
When I used to send my tapes out before I'd done tracks, because then I started sending actually records to promoters, not hundreds of them, but like the top 10 promoters would send them a record rather than a tape, just the next level. When my tapes I used to send out would always have a darkish side, like a breakbeaty bassline side, and the other side would be happy, hard and happy, I'd call it. So the promoter had a bit of both, so they could, I could be versatile. They wouldn't think, you can only play that. And all of my records, if you ever see one of my records, they have one side's always happy, one side's always jungly. And I've always been able to play both. But as it got to around 94-5, when the jungle was taking over, I had to make a decision and go one way or the other. And it went happy, obviously, and I was known as the Rave Master, whereas Paul was the Happy Chappy. Which I don't know if he loves that or not now. I don't know if he's stuck with that.
I don't know if I love Dougal now.
But me and Paul were always going out together, playing in the same places. As I said, the track we done was a super killer track, but I just went to the happy side. And for some reason, I've always every set I do now is vocal, piano, strings, breakdowns, always melodic, never too hard. I've always been known as the sort of the girly side of things, not the poncy side, but the girly side, the uplifting side. And it's just the way I've always been. I can do the breakbeat. I used to play I was a resident at Roast, which is the biggest jungle event in the world. And that's where I met Remo that night, that he got the opportunity. And I was the only white DJ there, believe it or not, ever. And I was called the Great White Hope. That's what he used to call me. I don't know, after some boxer or something. But so I can go both ways. But I am now the sort of the king of happy, I would say, sort of Mr. Uplift, definitely. But it's worked for me. And most places I play, the dance floors are full of people, just complete and good vibes, good feelings, just not dressed up. You don't care what you're wearing. You just don't care what you're drinking. You can talk to someone you've never met before and be friends with them for the whole night. It's just the way the scene is with the happy side of it. It's just brilliant, and I'm glad I went down that road and stuck to my guns.
It's a scene. It's a community.
Yeah, it is a community. Yeah, you see a lot of the same faces, and I've made so many friends. I've been to towns and places I've never been in my whole life. I've probably never gone further than Luton if it weren't for rave and hardcore and the scene. And I'm so glad, and I've met so many beautiful, wonderful people. And I wouldn't change a thing. Well, 99%. I wouldn't change it.
What would you change?
Outside in a minute. Not an hour.
So we all remember that positive energy of those original events at venues like Bowlers and the Sanctuary. continues to this day with the events that Forever are planning this year. But could you share perhaps an experience, vibes that stands out where that energy impacted you or the crowd, or just maybe pick a
Well, the Sanctuary itself, between the years of 93 and 99, were just golden years, absolutely amazing. I was lucky enough to be at majority of those events and do a lot of the last sets. If you're going to do a last set, the last track of the night at a Sanctuary, people wouldn't have drifted. The dance floor would still be full from 5 till 6 a.m. And that's a feeling you could never replicate now, to have a 6 a.m. set, you know, and with the people just, and you'd MC Lee or whoever be on would say, right, last one of the night, or any time of the night. Make some noise for the last one, and you on the tapes. It's as loud as the music. It's as the whistles and the horns and the whistles. It's just crazy. It's a goosebump moment. I've got it right now. Look, it was just from talking about it. It's just the feeling that I would never, the luckiest person in the world. If you can DJ at that Sanctuary to 4,000 or 5,000 people in front of you, it's something you can't buy, you can't bottle it, you can't. You just have to feel it. It's memories that you'll never ever forget. It's just the most lucky feeling in the world, and we've all had it. And it's we're a very lucky gang.
It is such an incredible feeling. There is no way a drug.
You know that noise, didn't you?
That feeling.
Yeah,
it's like it's just unbelievable. There's nothing that could replicate that.
Yeah, how lucky are we?
Yeah. Magika, is that being up there and being in front of these guys spinning tunes? What was that like for you? A moment that stands out.
Yeah. Well,
thinking about Sanctuary.
Yeah. There's loads. I mean, I think the one moment that really stands out, and it was only Sanctuary that could have made that happen because of the energy and the vibe, and that was with Paul.
Yeah.
And that was when we'd get the crowd, we'd talk to the crowd about, you know, cultures and creeds and wherever you come from, etc., and they'd all put their hands up and they'd hold hands with someone. And they'd never seen this person in their life, and it'd be like a sea of people. And we did it again last year, and it worked the same. And that it was only there that we did something like that. It just happened naturally.
People have made friends in the Sanctuary, and they've stayed friends for life. I know they have.
People have kids and all sorts.
Yeah, people have, It changed a lot of people's life.
Probably, mate.
Not in those toilets anyway.
In
the living rooms, wherever they are, on the balconies and all sorts. Yeah, whatever.
How about you? Is there a moment that stands out?
Oh, there's so many. Because you could literally list loads of them. But the one me and Darren always talk about, which it was a Helter Skelter thing, and it wasn't obviously at the Sanctuary, but Helter Skelter basically come from there, was Energy 97, which all you guys were at, weren't you? I think that was incredible. But if we're talking Sanctuary and Bowlers, there was a lot of people know this, but there was a funny night when Junior had been on one of his holidays, sabbatical, shall we call it? And he'd come back from his sabbatical with his HMP shirt on. We picked him up, we took him, then we were playing Last Hour at the Sanctuary. And he goes on this rampage of a 3 or 4 minute rap, and it's just do you remember the one?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And people still listen. I listen to it now.
It was like a recording. It was that good.
Yeah. And you got Charlie B in the background trying to get in on it, and he's just Jay just didn't stop. It's just insane. So that was amazing. Bowlers. I mean, even though Milton Keynes and Manchester aren't a million miles apart, the vibes are quite different a lot of the time. It's slightly different layout. Probably actually bigger in Bowlers, isn't it? I would have thought.
Might be, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a bit
Huge,
bigger.
isn't it? Yeah.
One that sticks out there is a week before one of the events. I can't remember which one it was. Possibly Life or something like that. We got a call saying that someone's friend had passed away, and they really wanted to play. I think it was Pretty Green Eyes or maybe Cutting Deep at the gig, and we announced it. And it was an odd thing to do in the middle of a rave, is to say we was playing this in honor of someone on their death. But the vibe in there was just insane, absolutely insane. I just like Manchester itself. I love anyway, but both those venues are there for life.
How about you, Dougal? Any sets or moments stand out?
I think most probably one of the biggest moments is the same as what G was saying and I think we most probably just made Can You Feel Real Free. It sort of all come together at the perfect time. It was that just the stars aligned, and we made Can You Feel Real Free, and I hadn't played it anywhere, and I had no idea what the response was going to be, and put it on, and there's that piano hit. every single person put their hands in their air, and I was like, "Oh my God, we've done it!"
So rare for a first time.
But for a
track,
first
isn't it?
time,
Same
no one's
with
ever
Die Hard
heard,
for
and
me.
they all went up. I was like, "Jeez!" And then G straight away, rewind. Let's do this. Let's get everyone holding hands, and that was the thing. And I remember Murray coming up to me straight after the set, and he goes, "That's it, you two. You're going all the way," and so that was really, really special for me. And then sort of never forget Boulders. Obviously, it was just such a huge venue when I went there for the first time. I swear you actually had the funfair rides inside the venue. It was that big. It's like, I'm like, you got what? They're in the venue. So and so it's incredible. So
Slipmatt. Memories?
Yeah, I mean both venues. I think I was playing Boulders right back in '92. I think, but and there's been some really big parties there in recent years as well. But yeah, no, that's really good. I think it's so hard. I've done, I think it was at the Sanctuary like every other week for a few years. It was like, and there's so many times got really good memories when I listen back to some of the tapes, some of the early ones from like '93, '94, brings back memories. Just things you remember from the MC and that, and I can actually remember it live. But I think the best thing is I actually played the last ever tune at the Sanctuary Milton Keynes in 2004, which was Slamming Vinyl.
Okay.
It was me, Seduction, and Psy back to back to back. And I'd always be like, no, go on, you play the last tune. But it was like the last ever party there.
What was the last
tune?
tune?
I sort of worked it. I can't remember actually. I can't actually remember what I played. But and I worked it, and I was like, right, yeah, okay, next. I played last ever tune there. So.
And it's something you all touched upon, the friendships and the communities that are formed in the hardcore scene. Did that differ from other genres? And I think we've touched on that already. But what do you think made it so special? Any more thoughts on that? We'll start on this side.
Genre-wise,
In terms of it being a scene and a special scene, and the friendships and the communities that were formed with Happy Hardcore, what made that kind of so special, really, and different at the time?
Yeah, I suppose, like we said before, it was sort of a community, wasn't it? That was the whole thing about a rave. So clubbing before raving was you'd go out, probably risk getting in a fight back in the 80s at some of these clubs and stuff, and you was sort of with your own crew and that. But I don't know, the raving brought everyone together. There's obviously other reasons, a bit of the drugs. Don't like to focus too much on that. Not everyone's into drugs, but that did bring people together. It made people feel sort of closer. It was also different, a different way of partying. So everyone suddenly was facing the DJ as well. So you all focused on the same thing. Focused on the DJ most of the time, but and the lights and the lasers and stuff. You focused at the stage, whereas clubbing again back in the 80s and pre that, DJ was tucked away in the corner. And you just be dancing, showing off, and flicking about. But it was a whole different thing. Everyone was sort of on dancing to the same beat in a similar way. You just felt like together.
And Dougal, you mentioned it like it was a safe environment. People could express themselves, and
people used to look after
so
each other.
I mean, I can sort of, I suppose, touch on all of them points that Matt made. So I think number one. Sanctuary was in the middle of the country, so what a great spot for everyone to meet. 2 hours from Manchester, 2 hours from Brighton, 2 hours from most probably like Bristol. I mean, what a perfect spot to bring everyone together. So it wasn't really 2 hours from anywhere.
You used to do it in an hour from anywhere, though.
Yeah, we used to do it in an hour.
Not now, though.
So 2 hours from anywhere, number one. Two, if you were at a rave and you travelled there, you were already different to most people. You were sort of, who in their right mind is going to go, 2 hour drive, wear this crazy clothing, listen to this crazy music. It was so unique. If you were like there, you were individual, you were different. If you looked at all the suits, all the business people, like the bankers, the stockbrokers, all these sort of people, lawyers. I mean, don't get me wrong, they get into it, but there was there was a certain sort of person that you were, and you were someone who accepted culture, you accepted arts, you accepted diversity, and that's what it was. And you knew if you were there that the person next to you would be the same. And within our scene, there was no racism within our scene, no way. nobody cared anything, and and that's why we all come together.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think when we was talking about earlier, that time of coming out of the dark music, getting into happy music, and then there's that definitive split between hardcore, drum and bass and jungle. And I think what was the first, Hardcore Heaven was the first all hardcore event at the Sanctuary, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure.
It was our event, wasn't it? Sort of.
Well,
Yes, sort of.
was
yeah,
for
yeah.
one.
So I can't really talk on behalf of the drum and bass guys, because at that point it was pretty much, apart from Helter Skelter, which is still mixed, a lot of the gigs were completely separate. But I think from our point of view, accessibility for the ravers, because everyone was at the gigs, happy to talk to everyone, have lots of friends that are ravers. Most of us were ravers in the beginning anyway. And just the out and out friendliness of most people, not everybody obviously, but the majority of people were just lovely. Junior would disappear up to flipping Birkenhead for a week at a time, just sleeping on people's sofas, and
Charlie B.
And Charlie,
just anywhere.
You could literally go anywhere. But again, that's the accessibility part of it as well, because these people that are worshipped are on the stage and keeping around someone's house for a week. And,
Sofa surfing throughout
it
the
was
week.
like one big
Back on it
family,
again at the
quite literally.
weekend.
Don't get Charlie in your house; he never leaves.
No, exactly. So I found that.
Yeah, same here. We've all had it. He came to mine for like a night, and
The ironic
2
thing
months
is,
later.
now he's got his own house. No one's allowed around there.
He ain't stupid. After all these years.
What about you, Magika? What was it about that sense of community that stood out and made it so special?
I think just interesting just hearing what I've heard today, whether it was substance enhanced or the music or the energy. I think it was a combination of everything, but people definitely mingled, and they mingled in a positive and friendly way. And you'd get people going on their own.
Yeah.
And they'd make a whole heap of friends.
The other thing is people were there for the music and the dancing more than they would be just normal clubbing as well.
Yeah.
Got normal clubbing, like before that, you were sort of out to pull or something, or out to look a bit special,
Yeah.
That there was not really,
No.
it was about the dance.
I
It was about
remember
the music.
girls
definitely.
coming on their own though, but that wasn't the done thing. I was like, on your own. You can understand with a guy, but a girl coming on her own, travelling on a coach
Felt- obviously
all the time
felt
when it was
safe.
happening. But that's
Yeah,
what I'm
it felt
saying.
safe, yeah.
It was so friendly.
and you didn't have to be cool. That
No.
was what was so good. So,
Yeah.
like, if you were sort of a little bit awkward at school, as most of me and my friends were, this is where we would go. To be honest, we'd fit in. We weren't like the coolest cool kids. We'd go there. We'd be the sort of outsiders at school, and then all of a sudden we found our people.
And do you know what? That vibe has carried on. There was an occasion recently, I was DJing at Rebellion in Manchester for TLI, and there was a lad had come over from the States on his own, and he'd become everybody's mate in that party. Literally everyone
He
looked
was a
after
superstar,
him.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
you was there, wasn't you?
Yeah.
It was amazing.
How did he feel? Brilliant. That just where could you do
and
that?
now he's
No.
got friends for life.
Yeah.
And I think he's been back again since, hasn't he?
Definitely would
Yeah.
be, yeah, because he was the main man.
It's
And
still-
where else
it-
does that happen? It doesn't happen.
It is still like
No,
that.
the
Even
racing's
at
special.
my event over in Ibiza, we have people. We've got someone who flies in from Australia on their own. And he's coming back again this year.
Wow.
And
But
a
isn't
few
that
people
good?
from, a few people from
Right.
a couple of people from Germany that come on their own as well. Mad, yeah, raving,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
bringing
good.
people
That's-
together.
yeah.
That's the community.
That is
you know
it.
what I mean?
together.
100%.
And if I can start with you, Vibes, one question, another one about that vibe, really. But if there's one thing that you could revive and evolve from the past within today's hardcore and rave scene, what would it be, and why would you choose that?
Well, let's go back to the Sanctuary, obviously, because we would go to the Sanctuary, all of us. We wouldn't just go like a lot of DJs do at other places and in other musics, turn up 5 minutes before your set and leave 5 minutes after. We'd be there till 6 a.m. Well, no one would be, people would get there at 9 and they'd leave at 6, which is unbelievable because it's unheard of when you think of that, really. And anyone who was in the rave scene, it was a clique. Everyone else was boring, basically. That's what they think, because we were a family, a 10,000 strong family. You didn't need to, you could ask anybody anything and someone would help you. If you're ever a bit in a bit of trouble in a rave, in the Sanctuary or any of the bowlers, you'd be looked after. You wouldn't have any worries. You could have lost something. Someone to pick the phone up, they'd hand it in. You'd lose your card. You'd always be backed up. You've lost your friends, no worries. You wouldn't find them until the end. You wouldn't really mind because you
Just
make
find them down the services after. Everyone would be down 10,000 people at the services.
Yeah, and you didn't have to wear certain clothes. You didn't have to have a certain look. You just had to be there, and you were a member by being there. You didn't have to pass any tests. You were already a member by being through that door. Yeah. And it was addictive. There's no doubt. I'm not talking about drink or drugs or anything. It was addictive going there. People had been on Monday waiting for the next Friday. They could not wait. They'd be listening to the tapes. They couldn't wait to get them tapes from that night, to hear it and get their memories, hear their shout outs. They'd be famous, they'd be famous because their name would be on that tape, and they couldn't wait to go again.
I think that's the thing, O'Shane, it became a lifestyle more than
it was. Anything. It's like football. People go football every weekend, home and away. They're crazy on it. They're fans. They're a supporter of Arsenal, Tottenham, West Ham. You're a supporter of a rave. You'd have your favourite rave. You'd be a fan. You'd be a fan of that. If they sold scarves and stuff for Dreamscape, I'm sure. Well, people had the jackets. Exactly. People had the t-shirts. Same sort of thing. So you were a signed up member of the rave scene. You were a guaranteed fanatic. And it was addictive. It caught you. It caught people. They'd do 3 or 4 years solidly when it was busy. From Glasgow to Plymouth, all the way down the middle, there was packed do's every Friday and Saturday between 93 and 2000. Unbelievable. I've always said this. The mod scene lasted 3 or 4 years, and it wasn't that big compared. The punk scene lasted 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. And you see that on BBC4 all the time. It just seems like rave was massive. There was 10,000 people at certain events every weekend. And if you count how many people were at these events up and down the country, 100,000 people were raving on a Saturday night to rave music, not just house or garage, but to actual rave music. There'd be 1,000 at this one, 2,000 at that, 500 there. If you count how many from Plymouth down up to Scotland, Skegness, Birmingham, Milton Keynes, Bristol, Cardiff.
7 figures.
I could say I've been to every town in this country, to big do's. It's just, the lifestyle was just crazy.
That's the word you mentioned there, lifestyle. But
it was a life choice. What
would you bring back, Magika? What is obviously it's difficult today. We have our attention being pulled in so many directions, whether it's in mobile phones, music splintered off into so many different genres. But what stood out for you?
I think like to bring back? As performers, we've all engaged with all levels of atmosphere and energy in parties and stuff. I mean, I one of the biggest ones for me, I hosted a stage in Holland for 80,000 people, and even though it was 80,000 people, it was nothing like the Sanctuary. Back in the golden era, that noise. When I discussed Sanctuary Forever with Matt 10 years ago, we never thought we'd have that type of energy or see that type of energy again. And we got to see that. I mean, that was probably the best thing to bring that energy back.
How did we get so many people to these events without the internet? How did that happen? That just shows everyone was just talking to each other. Everyone was together. You didn't have to have a phone in. There was no photographs being taken in a rave unless it was disposable. It was just such a feeling.
Yeah, that energy, man. That energy.
Everyone was bonded together
and that's
without
what made it exciting,
socials,
wasn't it? Because it wasn't everywhere.
Got a flyer.
It's like, what's this thing? What's this everyone's talking about? Have you heard of this rave name? And then, someone show you the flyer and you'd be like, oh my God. And
I think the tape packs were the
that was absolutely in the cars, we'd have them all blasting out everywhere. And it was exciting because it was actually a little harder to get hold of. The problem is now is with Spotify, everything's so accessible. You don't appreciate it the way we used to. Like, me and Matt, Shane, Bullsey, we used to travel over the country to get records as well, to get a white label. Mm-hmm. We knew a certain shop had it, we'd go there. If it's an hour and a half drive to go and get one white label, because when that white label had gone, that'd be it. You didn't have it. There might be 1,000 pressed, so you had to have it. So it was so exciting.
It was, yeah. I think there was a moment also, like in around '92, where it was fashionable. So, like in my area, everybody went. If you was into reggae, or you saw an emu or a rock person, or someone who was into like commercial music, or never went to these types. Everybody was going to the raves. I remember going to Fantasia at Donington Park, and my whole area was there.
You did cars drive past.
And they were like, yeah. I was like, what? Do you know what I mean?
You did cars driving past with your set playing. It'd be amazing, wouldn't it? You'd be out in the car park. People would just round a car. It's just amazing. Would you get that now? Hardly no. Not with a tape book in there.
I think the problem is now, so one thing I'd like to go back to is the simplicity of it in the sense that it started off as one scene. and now there's a million scenes.
All music under one roof for a while. Yeah.
And then even when there was a division between hardcore drum and bass, you'd probably have a hardcore room, a drum and bass room, and a house room. And that was it.
Yeah.
And then as the years go on, that divides again and again and again. And there's so much choice now that, someone likes that, don't like that, blah, blah, blah. And so I think that social media, phones, everything, strip that away, get back to the real, couple of thousand people on the dance floor.
Like the digital revolution, isn't it?
There's so many great things about it, but it's stripped away a lot of good stuff as well.
An amazing thing is there was only, I suppose, if you could take the drum and bass scene and the hardcore scene, there was most probably only sort of 30, 40 top DJs. Whereas now, my God, everyone's a DJ. It was actually quite a rare thing being a DJ. When I started, none of my friends were DJing at all. It's only sort of, a few years later, people started getting into it.
And you had to build yourself up. You had to work over years to get there and do things. Now you can just you get likes and profile.
Oversaturated. Everything's oversaturated. I think I was looking on Beatport the other day at one record label that had like 25 releases in one day, just one label alone on Beatport. I'm like, this is just madness,
I mean,
and it all just sounds the same.
The magical thing back then is we'd all meet down at JTS or whatever, do dub plate cuts on a Thursday, and then it will still be 6 to 8 months before a track comes out. And now it's just so throwaway.
So push your button, it's out there. A million people
it's made, it's played, and it's finished
and
in
thrown
a week.
away.
I actually went through a lot of new tunes last night. Went through about 800 tunes for my radio show I've got to do this week.
Yeah, but you're drained.
Oh,
it's exhausting.
It's terrible. Yeah. I mean, I do just flick on them within a couple of seconds. I can go, no, that's no good. That's no good.
Because you've heard it 1,000 times.
But a good 800 tunes last night.
Yeah.
So
but again,
the
problem with that is because everything's been done, it's so much more difficult to come up with something original now, whereas everything you touched back in the day was new.
But there's no physical stuff to create either.
That's that. Yeah.
Well, it's exciting then to be returning once more to the Marshall Arena in Milton Keynes for Sanctuary Forever, which is on November the 1st, and Bowler's Manchester Forever on May the 3rd, and with World Dance also set to return.
Oh, wow.
Some of those moments are going to be lived again. And what was it like for you all being involved last year in November?
Couldn't believe it. You never thought we'd see that again in the same sort of same environment, same postcode. It was just like a throwback completely. I was lucky enough to play
it's
quite
a stone's
late.
throw, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like amazing.
It was rammed solid in it.
Same address.
If you'd have just shut your eyes and opened them, you could have been back exactly where you were.
Nice big smile over there.
Sold out, solid. Didn't think it would happen. Got it all going. And we thought, all right, maybe. All right, mate. I'll speak to you next month. I'll speak to you 6 months. Yeah. Tell me again next year.
No, that was
Matt's
line, 10 years.
So Magika, tell us about putting that together.
He got the wheels rolling.
Come on, give us your story about
I think, try to get Dave to come out of retirement.
Dave from Helter
Skelter. And then before that, when we knew that there was a venue in Milton Keynes, I approached the venue just to see if they were interested. They didn't want to touch anything to do with the sanctuary and the legacy of the sanctuary because of all the antisocial behaviour that had happened and, arrests and anything that happened associated with that venue. They didn't want that legacy being passed on to them or they being the new sort of sanctuary. So they didn't want to touch anything of that style. And then I ended up speaking to the head of security, who was the guy that we was rejecting the events to go forward, any kind of rave event. So I got to speak to him, and it was really important because I had to show him that, I weren't some ex-football hooligan, drug lord who was trying to put a rave on. And I think he was ex-police officer. So once he got to see that I'd actually trained to be a police officer, that opened up a conversation. And then we managed to get the venue. And David decided he didn't want to do it. And then I started speaking to Matt, and I was like, what are we going to do? And then I told him, I said, what do you reckon to Sanctuary Forever? And he went, that's the one. That was Matt's words. That's the one. That's bigger than Skelter. And we hoped that it would be what it was going to be. We didn't know it was going to be what it was going to be, but we hoped.
And look how it turned out.
And look how it turned out, man. And the rest is history. And all these guys came to validate it when we needed them to come along and validate the story and everything and experience. And everyone was, gassed to be
You had to
involved.
work hard though, mate. It didn't just happen. You had to work hard, and God, it was worth it.
You was persistent, weren't you?
He definitely
to
was.
say the least.
Definitely
He's
persistent.
very good at being persistent. Yeah.
All right, 3 o'clock in the morning.
In a
What's
good
that
way. In a
message?
good way. In a good way.
Sunday.
Don't,
just having a little
don't.
relax. Ding.
Yeah. F off G.
It's got more WhatsApp groups than anyone.
Yeah.
But what was it like for you playing there and revisiting that?
To be honest, it was absolutely amazing, and the crowd were ridiculous. I mean,
you warmed it up for me, didn't you?
I did warm it up for you. Yeah. Hope you appreciated that. The vibe in there,
It was amazing.
it was ridiculous,
Amazing.
wasn't it? I mean, it was like the best of the Sanctuary. It really was, the noise, and we're talking 40 to 50-year-old people now, and
It was rammed from front to back.
And the best-
there was still a lot of youngsters in them actually, which was quite nice. So people were taking their kids as well, which was.
And there's another audience for the music that's still
there's
coming
another
through.
audience.
Yeah.
But what was lovely, I mean, we turned up, we stayed in the Hilton, literally being in the reception for 2 seconds, and then you got ravers running up going, "Oh, can you sign this? Can you sign that?" And it's like, you're 40 odd years old, you don't want a signature, you don't need a signature, surely. Going, yeah, signing shirts and whatever. So it was absolutely amazing. I'm really looking forward to Manchester Forever as well, because
Unbelievable how
playing that
25
venue
years
again.
later it can just be the same feeling, the same. It was just amazing. The queue going round the building like it used to do. It was just really amazing. Bring another one on. Bring it on.
How about you guys? Memories from the November events?
Oh, for me, the hardest thing was knowing what to play, because there was so much music, and the BPM changed quite dramatically, and the style changed quite dramatically over the years I played in the Sanctuary. So I was like, do I go sort of like you Awesome Free, Please Don't Go, Your Love Prodigy, Sons of the Loop, Far Out, Blame. They were really important records to me. But then you've got like sort of the next jump on where it's like, Can You Feel Real Free and stuff. So when I was trying to think about my set, I just wanted to do it all. So I just started down in probably the 140 BPMs and ended up at 170. So every single track, I just nudged it up a bit, and just before you knew it, building everyone up. But it was actually quite nerve-wracking, to be honest, because you got the music was so it was such a
big event,
such a huge event.
Didn't want to let right. Yeah.
Didn't want to let the people down, So
Your dad there as
Sanctuary
well,
had like a
wasn't
10-year, sort of 10-year span, really, didn't it? I think. About
Golden
10 years,
years,
11,
yeah,
11
golden
years.
And the
years.
music went through a lot of changes.
So it was
to encapsulate that's quite tricky.
It was a challenge, to think, right, what am I going to play? There's so much to choose from, but we did 2 weeks as well, didn't we? So I think the first week I went all the big sort of stuff from 94 to 96, and then I actually rolled it back a bit for the second set, and did a bit of 92 as well, late 92.
And perhaps I'd ask a question for each of you. Can you name a tune that captures the vibe of those events from now and back in the day, that you still see doing damage on a dance floor today?
Jimmy J and Cruelty, Take Me Away. Slipmatt remix.
Take him away.
Take him away.
I think Awesome Free, Please Don't Go is still one of the sort of starting points for me, where I really knew exactly how I wanted everything to be and the sound and stuff. So that's such an incredible tune. Sons of the Loop, Far Out. I can't say one.
Yeah, okay. Shades of Paul.
I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to say for us, Pacific Sun. We started to set with Pacific Sun, and I'm just going to say this for the record. I have on film, Jay, if you can hear this, you bopping away to Pacific Sun at the beginning of our set. So if you want to see that, I'll show it to you. But that's one that kind of stands the test of time for sure.
And for you, when you're introing all these and calling for a rewind, is there one that stands out?
I think like the Happy Years.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one, but it was an SMD tune.
Oh, right.
And that was I can't remember which one, but it was a banger. And that was the one.
I mean,
that
3 was
all bangers.
crazy,
it
weren't
was
it?
just lifted block piano in it, and it was that was the one that I
They're all
remember
incredible, yeah.
that got people going. It had that step to it, and everyone started to go crazy. That was the one that I always
Yeah, you made
remember.
us Match Tunes made us up our production games without a doubt. And we're like, right, we want the volume that Matt's got, we want the mids, we want the kick, And it was
Used to spend ages in the cutting room trying to twist his arm to turn it up a little bit.
because you want to blow the cutting head. There's a whole story about cutting heads with dub plates. That's just science, like you wouldn't believe.
Vibes?
Well, I was my main times was between 93 and 98, 9 at the Sanctuary. I played majority of the events, and I played the happy style mainly, the sort of the kick drum style. And the tune that used to really go for me was Disco Land, which was people used to love that, and also I Can't Stop Raving by June, I think. Really big track, but one that really still goes down and gives the goosebumps. And people always ask me to play it, but I can't because it's too much of an intro. I played it the last ever Helter Skelter. I played the last set 5 till 6, and the last track I played was made especially for it, and it's called "Don't Go." If you leave me now, you take away that
yeah.
and it's got a real long
sample.
intro.
Yeah.
So that's the tune that was the feeling tune that really killed the last ever Helter Skelter at 5 to 6. So "Don't Go" by Chaos. That's the tune. The tune to die for, in my opinion. That is encapsulates the feeling of the Sanctuary, Helter Skelter, and just 5,000 people at 6 o'clock in the morning. You won't get better than that.
And perhaps another question for you all, for those that didn't experience the 90s rave scene in places like Manchester and Milton Keynes, how would you describe it in 3 words? I'm going to give you 3 words.
Emotional. Spine tingling. Is that 2 words?
I'll give you that.
E. No, definitely emotional.
Spine dash tingling.
Yeah, just powerful, just energy.
Magika?
Magical. Very moving. Something that will, pardon the pun, sound cheesy, but something that will last forever.
Of course.
I'm going to go. I've been sitting there thinking what I'm going to say now. Absolutely life changing. I think we're going to go with, because I think for most of us it did change our lives.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's why we're sitting here now.
Mm.
Because of that
Oh God.
changed a lot of people's lives.
To express myself through music, not through words. But so yeah, I mean, this community, love,
Love, yeah.
and peace.
Peace, like it.
I think I'll say the best times. The best times.
3 great words.
Yeah, and they were for the people that were there. They're going to remember Sanctuary
You can't take the memories away no matter what
as
you
the
do.
best, as their best times. Yeah.
And then a final question for you all. In this age of social media, hyper commercialization, we talked about audiences being pulled this way and that, music genres splintering. How have you tried to keep that spirit of the underground dance music that you all grew up on alive? And what do you think? What do you think future generations coming up into the scene can get from the events coming up? They can get a taste of that, right?
Keeping it real, not trying to just keeping it real. Leave the phones at home, sort of thing, or stick your phone in your pocket.
Yeah.
Just keeping it. Don't have to keep moving forward too much with new technology and stuff that's going to distract you. Be in the moment.
Yeah.
Keep it in the moment. Keep it real. Don't and for us as DJs, we should be trying to keep our music real as well, not trying to strive for the next big, commercial thing and stuff.
Yeah, for me, it's always with my music production is just trying to always remember what it was that got me into music, remembering what it's like to be a raver, what it is that connects everybody. So it is a really hard question. But I would say the main thing is just remembering who I was when I was 16 years old, what it was that's emote them feelings and stuff, and just trying to recreate that, because there's every year there's another lot of ravers coming up. They're turning from 16 to 17 to 18. So it's just trying to bring them in and just show what it was that was so special, really, and just say, don't sell it out. Let's just keep it real. And I think that's all I can say there.
Oh, it is a difficult question. It's a tough one. But I really do think that the important thing, we found this years ago, is when we started out back in those 90s, it was just for the love of it, just for the love of making the music, keeping us happy, keeping ravers happy. And I think what's happened now it's a multi-million-pound business. And so much of it is just done for the money. And it's just kind of churned out, turned over, gone, blah, blah, blah. And people just need to get back for doing it for the love of doing it. And
Also, we distract, like you mentioned, social media and all that sort of side of things. It's distractions, isn't it? We're distracted from a lot of what we used to enjoy, I think.
Once the heart goes out of it, then it loses something. And there's so much music out there is just so throwaway. and doesn't have that kind of
We live in
attention
an
to detail.
attention economy, don't we, these
Yeah,
days?
do.
Yeah.
And everything and everyone is fighting for your attention because attention is money.
Perfect example of that is a lot
true.
of tracks now are made at 2.5 minutes. We were making tracks 7 minutes long, and now
It drops on 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And 2.5 minutes long, it's gone. You can make 5 in a day, or some people probably do. So that in
And then
itself
you need
tells
a
a
set.
story.
It's pointless.
Yeah,
And the thing I can say
Yeah.
for all of us as DJs is because we love it. We don't drive 5 hours. I think I drove 5 hours up to Liverpool on Saturday night. Don't get me wrong, it's hard work, that drive. But second I get in that rave, I'm like so pleased I did it. And I drive home, smile on my face, happy as anything. Up there, it's a bit of a struggle, but coming back, I'm always in the best mood. The next day I wake up in a great mood as well. And that passion, if you do lose the passion, step aside. But for us, we ain't stopping, are we, Matt?
No way.
And vibes, how are you keeping that vibe alive?
Well, I just be natural, do what you do best, and just try and look after people. You're not anything special compared to the ravers. Always have time for people. That's what I've always done all over the years. I know some DJs that want to get there 2 minutes before their set, leave 2 minutes after. They won't go through the crowd. They have to come in the back door. I know some DJs that won't even have photos. But that's immaterial. Just do what you do. Be natural. Just remember where you came from. Remember your roots, and just remember what you started.
Remember who's supporting you.
Yeah, you started there, and you might be there now, but you can easily go back there. It doesn't mean that you're anything special.
all been up
All
and down
the
a few
people in
times.
that crowd are the same as you. They made you what you are. Just have time for people, have a laugh, get there early, get in the crowd for a little bit if you can, Just put your arm around someone, hello, mate. Just that little bit of extra time goes so far. Treat as you want to be treated, and what comes around always goes around. Just
100%.
but don't forget your roots. Just be that DJ vibes of 1989, 1990, because you're still that same DJ vibes, even though you've played a few more places. Just have fun, make it fun. Just play the game.
Magika, final words from you.
I think there's positives about social media that we get to post the archives, we get to keep telling the story, we get to show the story, it spreads. The one thing that I liked about Sanctuary Forever, there was a lot of adults that brought their kids with them. I know one guy from Wolverhampton, because I brought our kid. I told him, I'll show you how it's done, son.
Brilliant.
And his kid was like 21, and do you know what I mean? And I think like the Forever gigs, like if you're going to try and replicate anything, it was the closest it was going to get like to that kind of vibe, to bring them to that. So that was pretty cool, just to keep telling the story and to keep pushing, reaching as many people as you possibly can.
Beautiful.
Well, big thanks to all of you for joining us.
Thank you,
Slipmatt,
mate.
Vibes,
Appreciate
Force, Magika,
Thank you.
Dougal,
Thank
and
you.
sharing your stories with us. And don't forget, you can catch these guys live at Sanctuary Forever on November the 1st at the Marshall Arena in Milton Keynes,
right.
and Manchester Forever at Bowlers on May 3rd. Tickets are available now.
Lovely.
Forever.
Perfect.
Forever.
Oh, it's great.
They won't be
hearing
available
everyone's
forever, though.
stories.
Better get them now.
We'll be around forever. Don't worry. We've come this far. We can keep going.
Thanks, guys.
No worries.